Welcome, everyone. We're really excited to have you with us today. When Sid and I were concocting this summit session a couple months ago, we knew that there was going to be interest in MCP. I don't know if we knew there would be this much interest in MCP, so really excited to see you all today. Just to introduce myself, my name's Elise. I work on building agents at Databricks, both with our low-code, no-code solution with Agentbricks, but also with our code-first agent framework.
Thanks, Elise, and I'm Sid, tech lead on the agent platform team, working together with Elise to help folks build custom agents, and also this MCP effort.
Awesome. Perfect. Let's dive in. Perfect. Okay, so if you've been in any session so far today, you've probably seen this warning. It's a forward-looking statement. A lot of this may change as we start to roll it out, so don't take everything as perfect immediately, but let us know what you're interested in. Please complete your surveys. We do take feedback really seriously. We really appreciate the time that you're taking both for Summit and for giving us feedback. It does affect our sessions and how we organize, so would love to hear from you all. And then in terms of an agenda, it doesn't feel like, okay. We're gonna skip the clicker. I'm gonna move in front of you.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we'll start with the State of the Union. What has it been like to develop so far? Why are we excited about the opportunity with MCP? We'll then prototype and deploy an agent using an MCP server, set of servers for tools. We'll then build and deploy a custom MCP server on Databricks. Finally, we'll add some more tools to our agent, and then we'll end with some takeaways. So why are we excited to be here? What's the state of the union? We all know tools make agents better. It's the way that they really take action and move from being a chatbot into something that can start to move autonomously and actually act on your behalf. They elevate it really to more than just a chat. So in this example here, you can see I have some vector search indexes. I may also have a delta table with order history. And so this gives me a much more complete picture for my customer of what their order status is, as well as company policies on things like returns. So it really makes your agent a lot more capable. But what have we heard? Why is it hard to use tools today? First, how do LLMs know what tools are available? They're much better at natural language than they are at REST APIs. There also isn't a standard in the community, so how do we build momentum? How do we start to reuse tools across different companies or across different domains without having to rebuild everything ourselves? And finally, I want to democratize building and using tools and building and using agents, but I still need governance on top of them. How do I make sure the right people have the right access to tools or the right access to data, and that carries through as I'm developing them? With all of these opportunities, that's why we are really excited here. And so this is why Mosaic AI and Unity Catalog work really well with MCP. Mosaic AI and Unity Catalog, really great for discoverability, so you can see the functions that you have available, the functions that are available to you, as well as governance. So how do you maintain permissions? How do you make sure that those carry all the way through, especially as you start to query data? And that works really, really well with MCP. MCP is excellent because it's built for LLMs, so it's really meant to give Claude and a lot of these tool calling models the ability to understand what tools there are so they can use those tools more effectively. And I think as we see in this room, there's a lot of community support. And so there's a lot of momentum we can build with MCP around using tools and start to build a lot more capabilities into our agents. So how do they work together? I think the sort of blanket statement here is that we can standardize tools with MCP, and then we can govern and deploy with Databricks. So we're actually launching a couple of things today and in the next couple of weeks. The first one is we will have a set of managed MCP servers to do data retrieval in Unity Catalog. So you'll be able to expose that data via those managed servers. I should have updated the slide because it was available as of this morning. And your governance is maintained. So on behalf of user auth for these is supported out of the box. So for instance, if I had access to a vector search index, but Sid did not, we both hit the URL for the vector search MCP, and he's not suddenly going to get access to it. So we are maintaining that governance all the way through, including to the servers that we're managing. The second piece here is you'll be able to build and deploy secure MCP servers. You'll be able to do this really easily. Sid's going to show you a really great demo of that using Databricks apps, which has OAuth out of the box and a really great development workflow. You all might have seen some of that during the keynote this morning. It also comes, again, with built-in governance and management. So you still have that governance layer on top as you're starting to build out these MCP servers. And then finally, you can prototype and deploy with Mosaic AI. So you'll be able to prototype agents using MCP with our AI Playground experience. That gives you a really great way to start building an agent without having to write any lines of code for it. And then you'll also be able to leverage MCP servers in Agentbricks. You saw some of that in the demo from Casey this morning as well. Let's dive in. What we'll be building today is, if you saw my talk earlier this morning, I did also build out a Telco customer multi-agent, but specifically for this talk, we'll be focusing on the tech support agent. We'd like it to do a couple of things. First, obviously provide tech support, so it needs to have access to a knowledge base, a set of FAQs, so that it can answer questions about what's going wrong with a customer's device or even with their account. But we also want it to be able to check for outages. Let's say Sid and I work at this telecom together and we have an internal outage server. And so if someone's having issues with their device and they're asking the tech support agent, why can't they ask about outages as well? So now I'm going to show you how to prototype and deploy the agent using our AI Playground experience. It's like, where's my mouse? Uh-oh. Which way is it? This way? Sorry, guys, I've lost my mouse.
The mouse is on
the there it is. I found it. Haha, amazing. All right, so we're going to jump into our Playground experience, which is right here under AI ML. And so you can access that really easily. And so I'm going to start with Claude. It's a really great tool calling model. And so Sid has told me that he's made this outage server available and it's ready to use. And so I'm ready to build my agent. So we're going to go under Add Tool here. And you can see that we now have a section under Add Tools that's specifically dedicated to MCP servers. The first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to test the server that Sid made available. So I know that this is a custom MCP server. This is something specific to our business. And so I'm going to look, see, I found our outage server. Awesome. All right, let's see if it works. So what tools do you have? Let's start by getting a lay of the land of what tools are available. Awesome. Okay, so we can see here that there's a check outage status tool. This allows you to check for network outages in a specific region. So it gives you a sense of also what context you need to provide to the model in order to leverage the tool. And we also have a get network metrics tool. What I'm going to do here is I am going to ask, is there an outage in the Moscone Center? So let's see, is there an outage right now? Can we actually get one of these tools to work? Awesome. So it's going to check the outage status. You can see that right here. You can see that it put in Moscone Center, and the output here, so what it was returned from the server. And so based on the information I've retrieved, there is currently an active outage affecting the Moscone Center. Oh no, this is fake. But you can imagine that this would be really useful and shows you immediately whether or not your MCP server is working as expected and also whether or not it's interacting with your model the way that you expect it to. So now let's also add some knowledge base articles and some support tickets so that we can also make this more well-informed as people are troubleshooting should there, say, like not be an outage. So I'm going to go and add tools. I'm going to hop under MCP servers. And this is where our Databricks managed MCP servers come into play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leverage some vector search indexes that I know another of my colleague went and built out already. So I'm going to choose a schema. Sid and our team, we've all been working in this MCP agent schema here, and I have a couple of vector search indexes. So I have one for my knowledge base, and then I also have one for my support tickets. So that way I can also look at troubleshooting steps that we've completed for other customers. I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to say, what tools do you have now? Perfect. So let's see, did we actually get those updated tools available? All right, look, we have both our support tickets and our knowledge base. So let's try to use one of them. What's the unexpected charges policy? Let's see if we can use the knowledge base and look up one of our policies that I, as a support team member or support person, would know about. So it's going to query our vector search index here. It's going to ask for unexpected charges policy, refund billing dispute. So it's doing a semantic search here so that we can find the right documents associated with it. And then in a second here, we should get back a couple of different articles from our knowledge base. Awesome. So you can see in here that it did go and query over vector search. It found the dispute period. It pulled out some of those key points from our knowledge base. And it even, as well, hooked right into Playground, so it provided citations so that I could even open one of these and look and verify that the model got the answer correct. So now I've essentially prototyped my tech support agent. So what do I do next? I could go and export code and work in a notebook, but my team and I, we've been working in a Git-based workflow, so I'm actually going to open IntelliJ, which is where we've been working. So I'm going to start here in our agent. If you've worked at all with our agent framework, a lot of this code should look really familiar to you. So you can see here, we have Claude 3.7. That was what I was just prototyping with. We also have a helpful system prompt. I did not put that into Playground, but you can imagine I might have written that in here. And then I simply also have some MCP server URLs. So the first one I have available is for my vector search index. So you can see that the API shape is API 2.0 MCP vector search. And then I provided the catalog and schema where those vector search indexes were available. The other one listed here is our custom MCP server that gave me those network outages. Great. And so now as I scroll down and I start to look at this, you can see that most of what's changed in my agent here is that I can get the tool specs. So I fetch all of the MCP tools in an OpenAI style. So we're mixing and matching here a little bit. Want to get the best of both worlds. And so I can get those tool infos and make sure that I'm able to actually deploy this agent at the end of the day. The nice thing, too, is that you also get an ML flow trace. So especially as you start to use MCP, potentially some of the tools change on your server, you'll be able to dig in and really understand what tool was being called. Was it the appropriate tool? Was a tool potentially removed, and so it started fetching around for other tools? And so that's going to be an important part as we start to lean into MCP. Then here, if I look at my tool definition, a lot of this, if you're familiar at all with MCP, should look pretty familiar. So we have a context manager. We're connecting to our MCP servers over async with streamable HTTP. So again, this is really standard, pretty boilerplate code that just shows you that you can integrate directly with MCP here. And so you can list your MCP tools. That's one of the required methods that you have to do. And then you can also execute an MCP function. Awesome. And then all I have to do from there is deploy my agent. Again, if you are at all familiar with the agent framework, this should also look really familiar. So I'd like to register my model in UC, so that way I have governance and I have tracking of where that model is being used. And then you can see I start to log my model to MLflow and then start to go through the deployment so I can get a serving endpoint and then ultimately actually leverage my agent in a multi-agent system. Let's go and deploy our agent. All right. So I'm going to start running that, and what we'll see here is that it's going to start by logging that model with MLflow, and then it starts to print out everything that it's doing behind the scenes. I'm not going to make you all sit through this, so we have actually already deployed this endpoint. Oop, we're just going to refresh that. Perfect. All right, and so you can see here, we've already deployed this. We have an active version right now, and once we get the next model version deployed, you'll see another pending version. But a great thing about our serving endpoints is that they are zero downtime. So until that next pending deployment is available, you'll still have the old version here as well. Let's make sure that this is actually still the same thing that I had prototyped. So let's jump into Playground again, and you can see instead of having selected Claude and seeing tools, you can see it's my deployed agent here. So what tools do you have? Hopefully I can type. Perfect. So here we should see our network outage tool, our network metrics tool, as well as our 2 vector search indexes that we added. Perfect. So we see our knowledge base, our support tickets, our outage, and then our network metrics. So our agent works as we were expecting, and it was actually pretty easy to do this with MCP. So what did you all just see? We were able to prototype and deploy an agent using an MCP server with tools really easily using the agent framework we have in Mosaic AI. So we prototyped it in Playground with Claude. So you want to be able to prove out your agent without having to write code for it. It's much easier to prototype in something like Playground and make sure it's working as you expect it to. You can export the code to get started quickly. I know we didn't show that, but that will be a flow that we support very shortly. And then you can also debug and deploy your agent. So I could see that serving endpoint in there. My old version was available until I have my new pending version, which will get uploaded soon. And so I'm going to hand it off now to Sid, and he'll show you how he created our outage server.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Elise. So let's get into how we built this MCP server. And to start with, I'm going to show you kind of like what my developer-facing view looks like in the Databricks product as I go about it and build a server. So first, let me go back to Databricks Workspace, and I can find my MCP server deployed as an app under Databricks Apps. You can see there's this Telco outage server here. And yeah, the nice thing actually about having this deployed as an app, there's a couple of benefits. One is you can see there's like kind of governance and security here. There's permissions on who can actually use my server. You can see I've explicitly granted Elise permission, which is why she was able to actually go ahead and prototype and actually try connecting to the server, right? And then the other nice thing is actually Databricks Apps lets you host basically any generic Python or JavaScript application, right? So I actually implemented a front end as well for my MCP server, and what you can see is kind of like a little ops panel, just nicely vibe coded. Basically, I can go look at the individual tools available in the server, and also I can actually go and list tools here as well. So yeah, you could see the tools that Elise was using, and yeah. So in terms of how I actually built this thing, you can actually do this at home as well. If you look up Databricks MCP, there's some documentation here. We have some guides on how you can host your own server on Databricks Apps, and there's actually like an example repo here as well that basically provides you some of the templating needed to host and deploy your own server. And basically what I've done here is I just kind of forked and cloned that thing locally. And if I go and show you my actual server implementation, again, kind of similar to the agent code, it's basically standard open source MCP server code here, like just using the Python SDK to define my server, defining the individual tools as Python functions here. And yeah, this is basically the setup. Actually, the only Databricks specific thing I had to add is this app.yaml file, which just tells Databricks, like, when I actually deploy the server to apps, what's the command to run, right, to run the server. So I'm going to go ahead now and actually show you an example of like updating the server to include a new tool. So currently, we saw there's tools for retrieving outage information, network metrics, but it would be nice also if people, they're asking questions like, I can't send texts, or my phone isn't working, like for them to actually be able to report issues as well, right? So I'll go ahead and add a tool here for, have this copy pasted so I don't typo it, a tool for reporting network issues. So this is a function here that's going to take in the type of issue that's ongoing, like is it an outage, potentially a degraded service, the region where the issue actually happened, and then finally like a description. And then it's basically just going to send an API request to my telco backend to like report the issue. And yeah, the nice thing about apps is I can, having this MCP server deployed as apps is I can just go ahead and actually run the server locally to test my changes. So I'm going to run basically the same command that you saw in the app.yaml to run the server. So it's running. And now if I pull it up, what I should be able to see is, for example, if I go back to that ops panel and I list the tools again, now I can see my new tool here. And if I want to go ahead and deploy that to Databricks for my agent to use, other people's agents to use through the server URL, that's also actually quite simple. It actually shows me how to do it from the apps UI. I basically just need to sync my local code over to Databricks. So sync my local folder over to the Databricks workspace, and then just trigger a redeployment of the app. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me first sync the code over. Yep, you can see it detected the change to my server logic, and now let's go ahead and deploy the server. So the server name, the app name, and then the code path containing the code I just synced. So let's do that. And then, it's going to basically, sync the code over and deploy the app. And now, if I take a look at the live app again, I should be able to see my new tool here as well. If I go to the bottom, yep, I can see my new tool. And then, if I go into Playground again, actually, I can just reuse this existing session. This is, I guess, one of the nice things is should just discover the tool and run it. So if I say something like, I can't send texts at Moscone Center, seems like a total outage. Let's say something like that. Can I report this issue? Let's see what happens. So basically, my new tool should be discovered, and let's see what Claude does with it. Cool. It looks like it's using my new tool. So it's going to report an issue saying, can't send text messages, call the tool, and created a support ticket. It's telling me, the ticket's going to be resolved in, let's say, 4 hours. Cool. So let's go back and see what we kind of saw here. Basically, in this example, what we saw is, you can build your own MCP servers to expose tools, host them on Databricks apps. The hosting is secure, so you can kind of govern who can use your server, have discovery of those servers. And we also provide a template for easily getting started and how to host your own custom server on apps, right? And that same template is actually also available on Databricks Marketplace as well as GitHub. Cool. So, I guess just to reiterate too, I think one of the nice things, at least for me as a developer, when I do deploy my server in this way, is just the fact that I don't have to go through additional security approvals and things like that, right? Like Databricks already signed off, so I can just deploy my app here and prototype and not worry about that process. Cool. So now let's take a look at doing something similar to what Elise did with using the managed MCP servers, but kind of in code. So let's say I want to add some additional data-powered tools to my agent. I'll go ahead and actually just take a look for this, to actually look at what existing data do we already have for our use case in the product. So if I open back up the catalog, I go to the schema where Elise and I have been collaborating. I can see there's actually a bunch of stuff under here. There's basically combination of tables, volumes, as well as functions for structured data lookup. So let me take a look here, and it seems like there's some useful ones in here. There's things like get billing info for a particular customer. There's things like, list, available devices in our product, ongoing promotions. Okay, so these seem useful, and you can see they're all kind of namespaced under this Telco support MCP agent schema. So what I can do is actually, if I go back to the Databricks docs here, you can see Databricks provides a managed MCP server for running UC tools as well, UC functions. So to include those tools into my agent, I just need to include the server URL, which looks something like my workspace, and then this path of API to functions, and then catalog schema name. So and I can do this as well in Playground. So let me go ahead and add it there. I'll go ahead and add the same schema, Telco support MCP agent. And this will make all those kind of billing and customer info and other structured data lookup functions available to my agent. And so now if I ask something like, what was the bill for, say I'm helping a customer and I want to get their bill, I can ask for a particular customer and should be able to see Claude discover and select. It's going to discover and select the billing tool. run a SQL query to look up some information and get the result and then summarize what my bill was. Yep, so it's able to get the result through SQL and then summarizing it and say, yeah, had 2 bills last month and the total is whatever, this amount. Cool, and then, yeah, if I wanted to include this in my agent code, this is also like quite simple. It's basically if I go back to the MCP server URLs, I add that URL format that we looked at earlier. So it's my workspace, URL, API 2.0, MCP, and then I'll just put functions in here, and then same schema. And now if I want to go ahead and like test out my agent code, and I can ask it a question like maybe the same one, like what was the average bill for a customer over the last year? Let's try something like this, and then go ahead and run my agent. Yeah, and what you'll see is like I can basically do the same thing in my code first development as well, right? Plug in the server URL, and while it runs, I'll show you like, yeah, the nice things are basically the tool utilities that Elise mentioned. Databricks provides kind of helper APIs for making the auth automatically work, right, to connect to this MCP server. And yeah, I can basically see, okay, what it did is, yeah, discovered all the tools, called my new one, produced the result, and yeah, got this average monthly bill. Cool. So the nice thing here too, again, is that when I use this managed MCP server, like all the data I'm looking up, all the functions, vector search that I use, I'm only able to use because I have permission in Unity Catalog. So like the same data governance applies here end to end. Yeah, but it's really easy for me to just go ahead and plug that set of tools or data into not only my own custom code agent, but I could also plug it into any agent that kind of understands how to accept an MCP URL, right, and do OAuth to our server. So that's, I guess one of the big benefits of MCP. Cool, so let's take a look at what we saw here. Yep, this was an example of basically how to connect to your data in Unity Catalog through MCP. You can use these like managed MCP servers that Databricks provides now in beta. You don't have to host your own if you want to access data on Databricks. And then we use that managed server to run some UC functions through MCP for like structured data lookup. And yeah, as we mentioned, like the benefit is you can also kind of reuse these servers across agents, both your own custom code ones and third-party ones as well. Cool. So now I'll hand it back to Elise for some takeaways.
Awesome. Thanks, Sid. Perfect. So to summarize what you saw here today, we're really excited to see a standardization of tools with MCP and being able to then govern and deploy them with Databricks. So that starts with our managed MCP servers for UC data retrieval. So again, I should have updated this slide, but those are actually available as of yesterday. But again, your governance is maintained out of the box. So that's really important as you start to interact with your data. It's really sensitive to your company. And you don't want to be managing permissions in many, many different systems because that gets very, very onerous. We also showed you how to build and deploy secure MCP servers leveraging Databricks apps. You get built-in governance, management, OAuth out of the box. And again, that governance and permissions are maintained as well. And a really pretty spiffy development workflow. And finally, we showed you how to prototype and deploy with Mosaic AI. So prototyping agents using MCP in our AI Playground experience. And we didn't show you this, but it will be available when we have our multi-agent supervisor. You will be able to add MCP servers into our multi-agent supervisor in AgentBricks. So if you want to try it yourself, here's a QR code. This links to the docs that Sid mentioned. There's also a tiny URL in case that's easier. But we would love for you all to try this, give us feedback. We'd love to hear how that goes. So thank you.